Hey guys, as some of you may know from my Facebook posts, I was in Washington, D.C. most of the week, so not a lot of progress on my projects. I managed to get home around 2 in the morning last night, just ahead of the storms. When I got home, I wanted to flop on the couch and unwind a little bit with some TV. Unfortunately, when I went to flip on the Panasonic Tau, I got a click and then nothing, and now I just get nothing. Now that click is normal, that would be when it kicks in the degaussing coil before powering up. I did a little searching online, and there were a few people posting a problem with this particular model, saying that it's just dead, and the first suggestion was to pop off the back and take a look at the fuse in the power supply. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Unfortunately, there's no one around right now but me, and I don't know that I can rotate this TV by myself because it's pretty darn heavy, but I'll give it a shot. If not, I'll just have to wait till a friend is free and can help me out. I moved some speakers and vintage TVs out of the way, and I managed to rotate this set while it's on its stand without gouging the floors, I'm happy to say. And even if I can't get the TV to work, I can finally clean out some styrofoam peanuts and dust bunnies from behind this. Alright, so according to what I read online, it's actually fairly easy to get the back off. 4 Phillips head screws along the top, and I can see there's a few along the bottom. This might have to come out too. And hopefully this whole back will come right off and we can see what's inside. Alright, I think I got all the screws out. Let's see. It still seems really tight along the top. The bottom swings up there. I wonder if there's some kind of plastic hinges on the top. There's 4 screws very obviously visible, and I got all 4 of them out. Not sure what it might be hung up on. Maybe the plastic's gotten kind of fused together over the years, I don't know. Oh yeah, geez. Okay, there's a felt band between the 2 plastic pieces, maybe to minimize squeaking or vibration. And that felt kind of fused to the top. Here's a peek inside the set. Quite a bit of stuff going on in there. So we got 3 big circuit boards, plus the stuff mounted on the CRT neck. A couple more things to disconnect. One is probably the convergence board there. That's this guy. Doesn't seem to want to come out. There we go. This little guy. That's that side. Got some more stuff going up here. That's for the speaker. And then the big scary thing I got to disconnect is the high voltage sucker up there going to the flyback. This has been about 12 hours since this TV last worked, but I wouldn't be surprised if it still has a pretty healthy charge. So I'll grab a screwdriver and a grounding clip and discharge it. Finally, I realized I was making this out to be a lot more difficult than it needed to be. There are a few more screws you can take off, one by the AC connector and 2 for the AV inputs, and then the whole back comes off and you leave the boards inside connected to the side, and you don't even need to take the high voltage connector off. Alright, now, so this is the fuse, so I'm going to check that first, and let's look for any obvious signs of distress on any components. And And I have not seen any so far. This set is just a tad under 10 years old, and it's pretty high end. So I imagine they use pretty good components and they're not all that old. So I do not see any bulging tops on capacitors. Not that doesn't mean that they still could be bad. So what I'm hoping is that perhaps it was just a power surge. Took out the fuse. Assuming this fuse is bad, I can't quite tell. Although I did get a tip online that if it was totally blackened, that would be a bad thing, because that'd be like a catastrophic fault. But if it might have just popped because of some power surge. I hadn't used the set in a few days while I was gone, and I turned the temperature down in here, so it's pretty cold. And maybe that cold start after a few days of not being used caused some issues. I don't know. Alright, so do the simple thing first. Check this fuse, and if it is blown, I'll pop a new one in and try to power the setup, see what happens. I just checked the fuse, and yes, it is bad, so I'm going to try to replace it. Fortunately, it's kind of an oddball value of, I believe, 6.3 amps. I'll dig around and see what I can come up with. I couldn't find a fuse of the right value in that type of packaging, so I just piggybacked a 6 amp fuse onto the old burned out 6.3 amp fuse, and hopefully that'll do the trick. So let's plug this in, give it a try. Yikes. Didn't expect it to turn on right away. I kind of thought that you'd have to turn the power button on to make it go on. But hey, how about that? Back in business. Still kind of curious though why. I mean, it's not like a mechanical button, it's just a soft touch. So you'd think the default state would always, when you plug it into the wall, would always be to be off. Yeah, well, I'll let it play for a while and see what happens. I don't have anything hooked up right now, but we can see some static. Maybe I can get channel 6. Nope. I just hooked up my analog cable source to the RF input. Let's see what happens now. Well, we have sound. So this is channel 6. So you guys have seen me show this so many times on my black and white TVs, but yeah, it is actually in color. And they're still broadcasting apparently. I don't know for how much longer though. And more importantly, yes. Alright. And I have sound.
Hey, Frank, so where I use it? In the kitchen.
Alright, so at least for the time being, I'm back in business. It turned out to be an easy fix. But still entertaining, I hope, for you guys, because at least it was for me, because I've never seen the inside of this TV before. I never pulled the back off of it. There's more in it than I expected. I've seen the insides of a few other modernish color TVs, like my old Sony Trinitron 27-inch from around 99, and it just had like 1/3 of the circuit board real estate that this set has. I imagine that's some of this is to process some of the input options, like this can do component RGB input. Of course, there's also not a whole lot on these boards, just a whole lot of electrolytic capacitors and jumpers that I can see, but not many active components. Not on this board anyways, just obviously these two big heat sinks here and the RF tuner. And that would be some processing for the front composite video input sources, and probably the audio amplifiers, because the wires to the speakers. And then of course this is all the stuff to power the CRT. So you got the power supply, that's a switching power supply, and then there's flyback, and the stuff to drive the vertical and horizontal yoke windings. So it is all recognizable as it relates to the old TVs from the 40s I'm usually working on. And this is just about it. This is pretty much the last generation of CRT TVs from 2003. Couple 3-4 years later, they were pretty much all flat screen, I believe. About half an hour later, the set's still playing just fine. Now here's a little bonus item we can take a look at. While I was out of town, this package arrived. This is one of those little test CRTs you can use with the old black and white TVs while they're up on the workbench. The sellers seem to have found a new box that's just barely big enough to fit the old box inside. So, kind of difficult to get out. I'll just set the camera down for a moment. Alright, I hope to survive shipping with no padding whatsoever between the two boxes. As you can see, this is a universal 110 degree picture tube. 110 degree would be like the predictive picture tubes. Very short necks with steep deflection angle. Box is a bit ratty. It's very similar to another one I have. And originally there would have been a more sturdy carrying handle on top. Original paperwork is pretty tattered too. I think it's all here though, if I just piece it together. Yeah, it's talking about warranty. It's curious. Do not use this tube as a regular picture tube or for continuous TV viewing. I wonder why, because one of the reasons I got this was I was thinking, if I do come across a TV that I can't find a replacement picture tube for, like especially a portable TV that has an 8 or 10 inch picture tube, that I could use something like this in it for until I could find a suitable replacement. But they say that you shouldn't do that. Interesting. A special heater allows this tube to be substituted for picture tubes having the following heater ratings. All 6.3 at 600 milliamps, 6.3 at 450 milliamps, or 8.4 at 450 milliamps. I wonder if that's why they don't recommend you run this continuously, is you may burn out that heater. Also, as I point out, you can use it with other deflection angles, like the older 90, 70, and 50 degree. The picture will just look a little goofy. So like my RCA 630 TS I'm starting to poke around with, I could use something like this in that set. On my other test CRT, I think this is like bonded to the CRT so you can't get it out. This has been used a bit more than I realized. But that's cool. It's got the adapter. I think with this adapter you can kind of use it with predictors. But keep in mind that some of the predictors use a 2.3 volt filament or thereabouts. This is designed for 6.3 or 8.4. Alright, well, as soon as I get another TV functioning up on the workbench, like the 630 TS, I can give this a try and see how it's working. This little plastic cover thing is a way to, well, it's sort of a test pattern, except the test pattern is actually in the CRT itself. But if you were to project a test pattern on the CRT, you could kind of line it up to this one that's, you know, on the external part and get them to line up right. Well, I've cycled the power about 20 times over the course of a couple of hours, and it seems to be working just fine, so I guess it was just that simple. Just needed a new fuse. Hopefully it will keep working for maybe another 2 years, but one of these days I do expect to get a flat screen TV, and I want to mount it on the wall up here, and then I can fit in a couple more vintage TVs down here. Anyways, that's going to be it for now. Hope you enjoyed this look at the insides of my Panasonic Tau TV.